Sounds right to me, and I'm in the room with the sound, so I don't know.
You're not the one who perfect pitched Do Re Mi before we started recording.
It's great.
True.
Do re mi.
You know, so much of singing is just good hearing.
It is. It's just opening yourself up to everybody else and letting the world in, and then spitting the world back out. That's what I think the key to singing is.
Yeah.
And also picking songs that fit your vocal range.
Yeah. So a lot of the Cyndi Lauper catalog.
Yeah, that's good for me.
So definitely not Slayer.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm closer to Slayer range than I am to Cyndi Lauper. Let's be honest.
Do you sing in your dad band?
I sing 1 or 2 songs every year. Yes.
Cool.
This year I'm going to sing Never Gonna Give You Up.
Oh, no.
Ooh,
Maybe.
I like that.
I'm trying to decide what to sing.
Devon, can you believe David has never invited me to see his band play?
Wow.
I think it's intentional.
It's a private party. We played a private party. It's a fundraiser.
You don't think I can schmooze my way into a private party? I've
this
schmoozed my
year-
way into more private events than your little private fundraiser, buddy.
I can figure it out.
That's fair. It's not in the suburbs. It's in the city.
Well, now that poses a challenge.
Exactly. All right. Can I tell you a weird singing? So speaking of outstanding vocal performances, and we can cut this, but a song that I've had stuck in my head all day today, that shamefully kind of, is Teenage Dirtbag by
Wheatus.
by the band Wheatus.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to ask, because I felt like this is very polarizing for people, and also maybe for you, Stan. Specifically, I was like, Stan is either going to like that song or really hate that song.
It's a banger.
I was in high school when that song came out, so it really captured the spirit of my adolescence when I was listening to a lot of emo pop punk.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's been stuck in my head all day. You guys got any songs stuck in your head all day today, other than Do Re Mi?
Not really.
What was yours, Stan?
I'm trying to remember. There's a song I sing to my baby when he's being fussy after the bath, and I was singing it today, and then my wife started whistling it from the next room, and I literally can't remember what it is. So
Young Folks by Peter, Bjorn, and John.
No.
It's a good whistling song.
No, but you know what? I have a story about that song.
Do you? Okay.
So before we knew each other, I used to DJ every Saturday night at Hawkeye's, which is not an Iowa-themed bar and grill, but shares a name with the mascot. But yeah, it was like this college bar by UIC.
Okay.
University of Illinois in Chicago. And I just like got it off of Craigslist ad right after college. And, you know, I have some DJ acumen. So I was DJing every Saturday night at Hawkeye's. And I was actually a VJ. We had like the version of Serato that you could funnel music videos into, and then you could transition the music videos and add extra video and effects. It was fun.
I just want to say I've definitely been to this place. I just took a look at the sign. I remember
On
the sign
Taylor?
out front. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And one time I put on that song by Peter, Bjorn, and John, and the manager...
Peter was there, weirdly.
No, I wish. The manager came running to me, and he's like, you have to turn this off. The owner hates this song.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And from that point on, the owner's wife would like come up to me at the start of my shift and be like, here's a list of songs that the owner would really like to hear today. And it's like,
ooh,
who's the VJ here?
What was on that list?
Bunch of like dad rock and classic rock.
Okay.
And like very generic pop music.
Okay. Not Teenage Dirtbag by Wheatus.
No. No.
You should be so lucky.
Was there any chili dogs in there?
Are you talking about John Mellencamp?
Yes.
Sucking on a chili dog.
There very well could have been, though I don't remember. That was not my last time DJing. There was another time where I had to DJ pop punk night at this place in Chicago's cooler neighborhood, Logan Square. And this was the Enjoy Lounge that they opened. It was Enjoy number 2 on Milwaukee Avenue.
I used to go to the original Enjoy a lot on Division.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
So they expanded to the other hip neighborhood, and I was doing pop punk night. And then one day I showed up, and at the start of my shift, there was still like an event happening, and it was slammed. And this is a time when Chance the Rapper was really, really, really hot. and I just read the room, and I put on some chants, and I started playing some hip hop, and the crowd was loving it. They were loving me. And again, like the manager or someone like comes up to me and is like, "Hey, but just so you know, like it's pop punk night. You really got to play the pop punk music." And I was like, "Okay, sure." I transitioned to that.
People left.
Dead silence.
It just cleared out.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, no.
totally cleared out. So this just goes to show you, like, I have really good taste in music. And if you're
Yeah.
going to hire me to transition from song A to song B, let me pick the songs.
You got to read the room, man.
You got to read the room.
Yeah. So we should read the room and get on with this, right?
I think that's a good idea.
Listen to Iron Maiden, baby.
Hello and welcome to episode 319 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago. And with me on the line, it's the one and only Devon O'Donnell, aka Doom Mike.
That's me. What's up?
Devon, you feeling lucky?
Not after my arena session today. No, not really.
Can't wait to hear about that. Oh, no.
Also with us is the Godfather, Dave Harvarger.
Here to say, oh, no.
Oh, no.
Dave, did you turn on the AC today?
Did not turn on the AC. It was nice in Chicago, though.
I had to turn on the AC. It got hot in my house. Devon, is it warm in Massachusetts?
Right now, the past couple of days, it hasn't been, but last week it got up to 80.
Yeah. I have a colleague in Vermont who told me it was 90 degrees in Vermont today.
Think of the Ben and Jerry's.
Wasn't that bad?
Truly. Yeah. On this week's show, we're checking in with Doomwake ahead of this weekend's Standard RC to figure out what he's playing, his thoughts on the format, and what to keep an eye on in Minneapolis. Then I, Stanislav, am going to recap the lessons I learned from my first RCQ of this modern season, which I played on Saturday at the Evanston Games Cafe, followed by some communal wound licking as we crack open my prize packs after finishing in top 8. And we're going to look at the contents of those packs. Dave is going to share some insights into what's good in limited. Devon will help us understand if there's anything in them that's good in standard. And then we will all collectively celebrate if there's anything that's actually modern playable as well.
So we're going to do one of the first dive down crack-a-packs ever.
We've done crack-a-packs before.
It's been a while. Are we
haven't
expecting a
done one
cease
yet.
and desist from Marshall and Luis? Or are we okay?
Come and get it, Marshall and Luis.
It's an open challenge.
I have lawyers.
Yeah, I do too on speed dial, just like I talked to last week on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. This just goes to show the world, even if we don't win tournaments, we can still make content out of them.
Oh, been doing it for 319 episodes, my friend.
Yeah. But first, let's housekeep. To celebrate episode 319, we did get a new patron, Greg H. What up, Greg? How you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining. Guess I'll see you later.
We love you, Craig.
Hi, Greg.
If you'd like to support the show, you can find us over at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can also support us through our merch store at thedivedown.com/store. Check out our sponsors, Heavy Play and Mana Traders. Heavy Play will give you 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com with promo code TheDiveDown2025. And Mana Traders will give you 25% cash back after 3 months of service if you use promo code TheDiveDown when you sign up. Devon, did you do that Heavy Play giveaway last week?
I did.
How'd it go?
It was won by ZZZ. I don't know how many Z's. ZZZ Xander. So if you're listening, Xander, I sent it out. Yeah, I sent it out today, actually. So
Oh, wow.
Congrats.
Look at that turnaround.
there you go.
I do want to say something to patrons here. Speaking of promptly sending things out, it's time. We
Yeah.
know we need to send out some Patreon stuff.
Yeah.
We are out of playmats.
Yeah.
For one thing to note, so people who have been waiting for playmats, you will get them. You don't have to stay at the level forever. We know that we owe you a playmat, so if you're looking to tick down, it's fine to tick down. But stay where you are if you want. We appreciate that too. But we know that we owe people some stuff, and so we will be looking to do a Patreon send soon, like weeks, from now?
I mean, I think by the sound of it, it's going to be in early June. It'll be after the Spotlight Series in Indianapolis, which, by the way, we're planning to attend. Shane and I are 90%. We have a hotel. We've booked a hotel.
Yes.
It's a refundable hotel, but Shane and I are basically locked in. David's still moving some stuff around.
Yes. I have my fingers crossed for that.
So I think it'll be after Indy that we can do our big shipment, which should give us ample time to restock on playmats.
Yes. But thank you for your patience, and we understand your frustrations, and we still love you and hope that you still love us.
I don't think anyone's really that frustrated. The most important thing is once you've earned a prize, you are locked into that prize no matter what. Even if you stop being our patron or you move down a tier, we respect the earnings that you've accumulated along the way.
We got the list.
We got the list, exactly.
We got the list. Devon, have you ever been to Minneapolis before?
No, first time. Well, it will be my first time.
You're going to love it. People are nice. You have to be very proactive at the four-way stop signs. If it's cold, there's this whole system of passageways through the city that you can navigate so that you don't have to be exposed to the elements.
I'm Googling it right now. Weather in Minneapolis. I would guess it's
there's
not.
also a complex system of body movements that you make in your snowsuits so that you can communicate with people without non-verbally. Kind of like bees. You know how bees do dances?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be
like that.
dancing like a bee in the middle of the street, Dave. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
For what it's worth,
It's your loss.
Friday, Saturday, like mid 40s. So it's actually a bit chilly.
Yeah, you're going to need those tubes and tunnels.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to go there to take in the friendly upper Midwestern personalities, why are you going to Minneapolis?
Play some Magic, I guess. Some standard Magic the Gathering.
Nice.
Card games.
All right. It's the RC. This is the first standard RC of this season, if I recall.
Second. We just had one this past weekend.
Yeah, Bologna, right?
Yep. Bologna.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry. This is the first American RC.
Yes.
Correct.
What are you playing?
Well, I'm probably going to play the best deck in the format, which to be fair, I don't usually do. I'm usually on the fence of surely there's a deck that can beat the best deck of, whatever, there's good. There has to be it has to have some bad matchup. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think this Prowess deck has any bad matchups.
Wow.
And it is, the thing about the Prowess deck is there's so many different ways to build it. And we'll get into that in a second. And I still, there's a lot of different slots with, regarding like creatures and more aggressiveness and stuff like that. So a lot of things to figure out over the next couple of days.
Would you like me to give a quick recap on Bologna?
Yeah, sure.
I have a couple of stats I could give. The meta in Bologna was 16.7%. Is it Prowess? 179 players. Mono red aggro with 10.9%. Esper Pixie with 10.5%. Jeskai Oculus with 8.6%. Azorius Omniscience 8.6%. And finally, Jeskai Control 7.3%. I'm going to stop there. Those were the top 6 decks. And then someone was nice. So that was posted by Josh in our chat. So that the meta breakdown from Bologna. And then Jake Monty from our chat, I believe, did a calculation, or he pulled it from somewhere, of the conversion rates of decks between day 1 and day 2. And the meta in day 2 was Jeskai Oculus had the best conversion rate with 20% of pilots converting to day 2. Is it Prowess was slightly behind, 19.6. Dimir Midrange was the next one there with 18.6. I'm just going to stop there. Those are the top 3 converting decks between day 1 and day 2. Any surprises there, Devon? Anything from that factoring into your decision to play Prowess, or how you're thinking about your final build?
I mean, not really. Oculus and Prowess were sort of the 2 decks that our Discord had expected to do well going into the event. And they were, funny enough, probably the 2 best performing decks, although Oculus didn't actually put any into the top 8. Most of the Oculus decks were like top 16, top 32, but there was quite a few of them. The one thing that is a little surprising about that data sample is Dimir Midrange, which has historically been like, the joke is that it's just a 25% win rate deck and nobody can ever win with it. And it has it usually, has been a deck that can prey on the other aggressive decks. The problem is, if you're playing Dimir, how do you kill an artifact? And the best card in the format is Quarry Steelcutter. And my experience with Dimir against Prowess was the games where they didn't have Cutter, I was crushing them. But the games where they played it on turn 2, I was 0% to win.
All right, so we're playing Prowess.
Mm-hmm.
What are the builds floating around right now? I see a couple of things that are on your list. Have you picked one, and what are you planning? Why did you drive it?
I
have not picked.
I have not picked one yet.
So these are pretty different.
Yes, and that is the really interesting thing about this deck list is, you know, you go up to somebody and they tell you that they're playing Prowess, but that could mean so many different things. Where you have the more aggressive focused build, which is 4 Slick Shot, 4 Monstrous Rage, just as many cheap cards as possible. Some of those builds don't even play stock up. They have cut stock up and they're playing Ren's Resolve instead, which is the Exile 2. Right, yeah. Exactly. So cheaper spells.
So real quick, let me just say what's in this. The threat package in this deck kind of is Monastery Swiftspear, Slick Shot, Show Off, and then you have Storm Chaser's Talent, which is basically another 1-drop. Although I imagine sometimes you get to use the other levels of it, but that's what you're looking at, and then a bunch of 1-drops other than stock up in the list that you shared with us anyway.
And Cutters too.
Cutter, yeah, exactly. Oh, and Cutter.
Every deck we talk about is going to have Cutter in it.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have something in the middle, which is the version that I think I'm leaning towards right now, which is the version in the dock that I have up here. So that one is playing Monastery Swiftspear, Quarry Steelcutter, Storm Chaser's Talon, and that's where it stops. There's no Slick Shots, no additional threats. It's the other creature that it's playing, and this is the version that got top 8 of the RC, is Thundertrap Trainer.
Which is wild to me.
Sounds kind of weird to play in a Prowess deck. It's a 2-mana 1/2 that draws a card. You might not think to yourself that card is good in a Prowess deck. But the reality is, the games where you have Quarry Steelcutter are like, it feels like you are playing a different deck and like a different format entirely. So having a card that digs you 4 deep to find a Quarry Steelcutter, it's just good enough. It's one of the few cards that like actually can dig deep, and you can play stuff like Impulse. There's other versions of this, but the reason that you choose to go with Trainer is you'll notice this version is playing more copies of This Town Ain't Big Enough. So you have kind of this engine where you have Town with Talent. That's something that the Pixie decks do, but then you use Trainer as another sort of option to pick up for value to then, you know, just keep going later into the game. And again, just give you more consistent access to Cutter.
Wow. Yeah, I did not expect to see this because it's not, you're never attacking with this. You're really just bouncing it and using it as a draw spell.
Yeah, I will say, I've kicked that thing a couple of times in my testing. It's pretty nice when you kick it.
You've kicked it to draw 2 cards, but you're still basically never using the tokens to anything other than to block or something. You're probably not even blocking that much, right?
No. Yeah, I mean, sometimes
how fast
you
is
like...
this deck?
So that's the funny part where... So you're not playing Slick Shot Show Off, right?
Right.
Which means you have generally less aggressive draws. The games where you have Quarry Steelcutter on turn 2, you can very easily kill by turn 4, right?
Okay.
But the games where you don't have Quarry Steelcutter, you do have less overall threats. So it can be a little bit harder to win the short games. And that is what scares me about this particular version compared to Slick Shot is there's a lot of matchups like Domain and the Blue-White Omniscience deck that you need to get them dead as fast as possible. And this version has a much more difficult time of doing that. So that's the trade-off. A version that I didn't actually include here that I can probably find a list real quick. But there is a version that was popping up on Magic Online within, I would say, maybe like over the past couple of weeks. And I think you'll like this one, Dave. This one, I'm going to post it in the doc right there. So this one is playing not a single Prowess creature. The only creatures in the deck are 4 Tolarian Terror and 4 Hearth Elemental, which both those cards are large creatures that get discounted for based on the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard, right? So you have those cards. You're playing the maximum number of cantrips, so Sleight of Hand. This one's even playing Unending Whisper, which is the 1-mana draw card from the new set that is Harmonize.
Goes pretty well with Hearth Elemental and Tolarian Terror is the idea there, I imagine, right?
Yep, you get it. Still playing Cutter and Talent, and then, you know, a couple of kill spells like Burst Lightning, couple of Towns, and then 4 stock ups. So basically, I've sort of presented you with all different like spots on the curve. You have the hyper aggressive version, the one in the middle, and then the one that's all the way on the right. The kind of the concept or the reason to play the one that's all over on the right with the terrors and the hearth elementals is that the most popular card that people are playing to beat the prowess deck is Temp Lockdown. And if you take a look in the terror version, sure, Lockdown hits Cutter and Talon. You still have to play those cards, but your sort of extra or, supplementary threats don't get hit by Lockdown. So that's kind of the idea with that version.
You can't lock down my Bedlam Revelers.
No.
Is kind of what we're saying here.
Yeah, that's why I knew you'd like that version.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is fascinating to me because this is one of those things where it's like we're leveling, right? Like a lot of people have decided, like you said, Corey Steel Cutter's the best card in the format, but what's the Corey Steel deck that beats the other Corey Steel decks? And so when you think about these three, like, is that kind of how this is working out? Like, are these metagaming against other decks? Are they metagaming against themselves? Like, what do you think is really going on with these lists?
It's interesting to me where I think the initial idea was that, when the Prowess deck first came out, the very early versions were the more aggressive ones with Slick Shot, Monstrous Rage, all that stuff. And the natural response was play a bunch of kill spells, play a bunch of sweepers. So then, because people were responding to Prowess, now the Prowess decks have to then respond again to them. So the Prowess decks go bigger. Then people, once the Prowess decks go bigger, now they cut their lockdowns, their spot removal. They play Graveyard Hate or, more, kill spells like Go for the Throat and stuff like that. More, flexible kill spells. And then, but the problem is that stuff is not very good against the cheap stuff. And so it's like this weird back and forth. So the way that I understand it, and this might be maybe like a flaw in my specific testing, or maybe I just haven't played enough mirror matches, which that's the number one priority this week is just play as many mirror matches as possible in testing. The common consensus among the people that I've talked to is that the version that has Slick Shot and Monstrous Rage is actually favored in the mirror. If you play heads up, like if you play Slick Shot Rage versus any of the other versions, the Slick Shot Rage version is favored. And the reason for that is because if you look at the removal spells, the only kill spells we have are shocks. 4 Burst Lightning, sometimes a shock, sometimes a Torch the Tower, but it's all 1 mana, 2 damage. And if your opponent plots Slick Shot on turn 2 and then goes turn 3, Cutter Slick Shot, hold up 1 mana, you're dead. Like you can't ever kill it because they're going to have the Rage or the Spell Pierce. You just take so much damage, and then if you go for it and they have the Rage, then you can't kill the Slick Shot the next turn. So that's pretty brutal. That's what we're discussing of like trying to figure out what the best version is for the mirror. And the issue is like, yeah, okay, the Slick Shots and the Rages, maybe they're a little bit worse against people who are interacting with you more often with like lockdowns and stuff like that. But if you can, there was versions that have from the RC were playing a lot more bounce spells. They were playing like more into the Flood Maws, more of this tiny big enoughs. And if you have enough of that stuff, then you can just end of turn bounce the lockdown and kill them in one shot. That's the idea.
All right. What are you most worried about when you're playing this, when you're picking right now? Like which decks are you keeping your eye on the most that are not Prowess?
In terms of like decks that like matchups that I'm worried about?
Yeah, like which ones do you have your mind on? I guess you said you're prioritizing mirror matches this week.
Yeah, that's really it.
That's it? That's where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this deck is resilient enough. Like it basically, the way that I look at it is it's very similar to the Phoenix decks in Pioneer, where I guess the Phoenix decks can't go as fast as this Prowess deck, but the idea being that you have a somewhat like fast-ish clock or a fast enough clock to race some of the combo decks, and you just have the best late game in the format. You have Corey Steel Cutter, which is a free haste Bitter Blossom, better Blossom every single turn. You have Stock Up and Storm Chaser's Talent, so you can keep rebuying Stock Up over and over again. If you're playing this townie big enough, you have Town plus Talent to just go off with that later into the game. So you actually have like a surprising amount of late game potential, but also coupled with all of those fast draws that like it feels like you can just beat anything at. Like I I'm being sincere when I say this. I don't think this deck has any bad matchups other than, trying to figure out a plan for the mirror.
All right.
But I'm going to see if I eat my words this weekend.
Well, I mean, we're looking forward to see how you do, of course, and we can talk about it a little bit next week if you're up for it, or the week after, depending on how travel goes.
Yeah.
What's your mental state going into this tournament?
I would say okay. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of this format. The more that I play it, there's a lot of red decks, right? You have Prowess, there's Gruul, there's Boros, there's mono red. There is a lot of red. If you kind of look at like the combined metagame share of all the red decks in the RC in Bologna this weekend, there's a lot. And it just kind of feels like the games are just very like, I'm trying to think of the way to put this. I mean, I guess just die roll dependent. I know that, and I understand that Magic is a game of variance, and that's going to have a factor in basically no matter what format or what game you're playing. But it just feels like this format has a lot more of that than any other standard format in recent memory.
Wow.
Basically, just play your cutter first. That's all you get.
Yeah. It's a Corey Steelcutter world we're all just living in right now.
That card ain't right, man.
Is this Corey Steele Cutter Appreciation Podcast episode 2? Is that what we're getting into right now? Or
dude, I could talk about this card every week for the next 10 years.
Well, we're going to talk it 10
maybe not
years.
That long.
Wow.
But
What if they give us a 1-mana Braid next set in Final Fantasy? And they call it like
I'm just going to spell pierce
Chocobo down.
Spell pierce that.
Chocobo down. Stan, I don't want to spoil the ending, but we're going to come back to Corey Steelcutter for a minute. I know in your discussion, but do you want to talk about the RCQ that you played?
Yeah, I mean, and don't get anyone's hopes up. I didn't play Steelcutter, nor did I play against it. There was 0 prowess in the room, as far as we could tell.
What?
Which was
fascinating.
A little surprising. Also, friend of the show, George Jabbour from Flex Slot,
Shout
Team
out, George.
Flex Slot. He was there, so he and I had a good chat. But yeah, so I played an RC. An RCQ. Thank you.
Yeah. So you went in Bologna this weekend.
No, he's going to Minneapolis.
Yeah. Do you want to say where you were?
I was at the Evanston Games Cafe in Evanston, Illinois. I walked there.
Shout out to a lovely store in a nice town.
Yeah, it's not often you get to walk to an RCQ.
No.
I could have, if I had my bicycle with me, I could have biked home for lunch, but I didn't, and I just went to get a hot dog next door instead at Devil Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Devil Dogs, sponsor our podcast. Yeah, so I played Boros Energy. Ahead of this tournament, I stubbornly refused to practice. I don't want to play my 500th MTGO Boros match. As much as I love playing Boros in paper and am happy to keep replaying the deck, online is just so impersonal. It's the value you get from that online practice was one I was willing to forego for the sake of just riding on my practice for the last year or whenever MH3 came out.
Stan, I don't think anyone would judge you for refusing to practice. That's okay, right? You just needed a break from Moto.
I needed a break from Moto. And look, I've got some really good comic books I'm reading right now. I'm trying to beat Blueprints like my life depends on it without breaking my Steam Deck because I constantly want to throw that against the wall when I play Blueprints.
Is it getting more difficult, crazier?
I've sunk like 30 hours in this game and I need it to be over.
Oh, wow. Okay. We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that and what's that in your pocket. Although I refused to practice, obviously I was paying attention to the lists that were doing well online. I had some chatter conversations in the Discord with other Modern and Boros players about what people are liking. I assembled a deck list that I felt happy with based on all of these factors. And I guess the principal difference between what I'm doing and maybe what others are doing, or I guess the most critical decision I made was that I wanted to test my opinion from a few weeks ago, which is Voice of Victory is a very, very good card in Boros Energy.
Yes. Okay. I think that's totally a good thing to test.
And I noticed that prior to this past weekend, Voice of Victory was practically absent from most successful Boros Energy decks in MTGO results, especially.
No kidding. It had gone back lower in the last, because I haven't checked the meta in the last week. It's down.
It was like none.
Huh.
Okay. Finally, I checked today the weekend results. The plurality of successful Boros decks were playing 1. Okay, so
Wow.
people came back a little bit. So I think this transitions me into a little section I like to call 3 lessons learned from my first RCQ of the season.
Perfect.
Lesson the first.
Okay.
I hedged my bet on Voice of Victory. I thought I was really good. The hive mind wasn't as convinced. I decided I was only going to play 3. I wish I had that 4th one. It was even better than I thought it was.
Wow.
There you go.
Every game where it swung, I won. And
That's pretty impressive.
The positions that it would get me out of were just undeniable. Undeniable. All my opponents were scared of it and recognized very quickly that if it stayed on the board, it would just be a huge problem. Just like fundamentally game defining anytime I played it, I was able to steal a game from Belcher, a notoriously bad matchup. I stole game 1 from Belcher off the back of a Voice of Victory, and then games 2 and 3, they got wise to it and were targeting it with Spell Snare. And, in one of the games, I couldn't land another threat, and they were able to answer my other hate cards, and then you get Belchered, and that's what you sign up for.
Specifically for that matchup, it actually seems like the text where your opponents can't cast spells on your turn matters a lot in that matchup because they can't force your hate cards post board.
Yep.
That's huge.
So yeah, I was able to steal a game, couldn't take the match. Regardless, it was how I beat Titan.
Tell us how it helped you beat Titan. Yeah.
I would play it on turn 2 and then swing. and then I would have that with some combination of either a Johnny and or Goblin Bombardment, and it would just be a snowball that they couldn't deal with.
I just had this oh crap moment. I forgot that card turns off Force of Vigor entirely. If you Blood Moon them, they can't force you.
Unless they hardcast it.
Yeah, but you're Blood Mooning them off green, right? Most of the time.
Wow.
That's crazy, right?
That's really good. I was playing Magus because I knew there would be at least one Titan player in the room. I played in this shop before, and there's the Titan player. So I played Magus, that guy, because I'm willing to believe that it's better than Blood Moon right now because you don't want to give him Boseiju targets.
Sure.
Yeah. And then it was really impressive against Orzhov. It was game 3 against Orzhov. My opponent and I had been exchanging resources all game. We were both hellbent with empty boards. I had a Goblin Bombardment out. Peel Voice of Victory off the top. I don't remember if I gave it a haste or not. I play it. Next turn, Peel a Johnny off the top. I just win that turn.
GG.
Wow.
A Johnny plus Goblin Bombardment's already really good, but having all that extra material that I must have had Arena of Glory because I was able to do the extra 2 points of damage when I peeled the voice off the top.
I see.
Because you make the tokens, they hit for 2, then you sack them to bombardment, hit for 2 more. It's basically a burst lightning at that point.
How often did you the whole trick of not having enough energy when you attack with Goddess Souls, did that come up a couple of times?
Okay, that was one match where that happened. It was against the Titan opponent where I had 2 guides and a voice. And I started going through the motions, and then my Titan opponent, out of a sense of mutual respect we've established, because I scooped as soon as they presented their loop with Aftermath Analyst in game 1, they reciprocated when I was like, okay, I'm just going to make 80 energy. Okay.
And then I'm going to make this fly.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, so before we get off this topic.
Yep.
What do you think is going on with the Magic Online people that the hive mind has moved away from it? Do you have any thoughts or any last things you would say to those people to say, no, really, go back and put this card back in, and this is what you should play it over?
I can only venture a guess because I am not a challenge grinder.
Right. That's fair.
Okay. So I don't know, maybe Devon can correct me on this, but I hear often said in the discourse that people who play challenges very frequently are just copying and pasting one another's decks. And
Yep.
yes, there's innovation here and there, but it's just easier to grab the deck that did well or the deck that consistently does well than it is to always look for new tools to experiment with, especially if you're kind of only playing a challenge and not going through the leagues ahead of a big challenge tournament. So my assumption is that there hasn't been enough proven results, and it's the self-fulfilling prophecy of no one's playing the card to prove how good it is. That's conjecture, though.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned like people copy pasting lists because there was, I think it was McWin Sauce. I don't remember which challenge it was, but it was like maybe 3 or 4 challenges ago. It was over the weekend, and Sauce played a version that had 2 voices. And then after Sauce played that version, I saw more people picked up the 2 voices.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to copy a deck list, copying McWin Sauce is pretty good. Has been for as long as this
can't
show's
go
been
wrong.
running.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So I was so pleased with Voice, and I don't know if I'll get to play an RCQ again this weekend or the following, but I don't want to leave home without 4. It was just so important anytime I was able to land it. And I was really, really impressed with it.
Okay.
I mean, obviously we talked about the Belcher matchup and a little bit of Amulet where the you can't cast spells in your opponent's turn. Did that materialize? Like, did that feel like it was mattered in a lot of other matchups too?
So match 1, I played against 5-color domain control. It was a weird deck. It had Wilderness Reclamation and Cryptic Commands in it.
Ooh.
With oh my gosh, what's the name of the domain enchantment removal spell?
Binding.
Yeah, Leyline Binding. So they were doing something like that. I don't think I would have lost that match if I didn't have Voice.
Sure. Okay.
Match 2, I played against Orzhov, and we know what happened there. It was very important. Match 3, I played against Belcher and lost because I lost to Belcher because they cast Belcher.
That's how that works.
4, I beat Titan. We know what happened there. I just kind of took over. Also, game 3 against Titan, in fairness, they multi-5, and I went 1, 2, 3 and curved out. So
there you go.
Such is life. I had the Blood Moon in my hand, and I just never cast it because I was going 1, 2, 3, and they needed to top deck lands. So I practically got the buy, and then I was able to ID match 5, and then in the quarters I played against Dimir Control, which will actually get into my second observation. And in Dimir Control, they just had a removal spell for all of my creatures. So as I mentioned, I think Voice has to swing to win. I couldn't swing with it.
Sure.
Yeah, although it does mess up their plans a little bit since that deck is playing counter spells.
That's true.
And so having that down, there's a little bit of that. I would think, at least when I was playing Dimir, the Dimir Frog matchup against Energy was really bad for me pre-ring ban.
Yes.
But
yes.
Who knows? It seems like it still would be, but.
And we went to game 3, but here's point number 2 from my takeaways of this tournament. Murktide Regent's a big problem.
Yeah.
Especially because you're cutting down on static prisons.
Yeah.
There's a lot, it's really hard to answer it. This deck, I'm assuming they had Psychic Frog. I never saw one. I just saw removal spells, Murktide Regents, and Bowmasters.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to have Frog, Maybe it's just a more control list.
I suppose that's true. I don't know why you would play without Frog. It's a very good card.
I don't know either,
but whenever they would land a Murktide Regent, there's nothing I could do. A lot of the Boros decks are now going down to 2 static prisons, and I feel like you either have to come up with a better answer for the card Murktide specifically, or just start playing more prisons again with a plan B of how you're going to filter them with Fable or Seasoned Pyromancer if there's a situation where they're bad or you have nothing to target them with. And it made me wonder if a lot of the Dimir players are starting to get wise to the challenge that the Boros matchup presents, and they're maybe going all in on big Murktides, which I think are harder to kill than in Oculus. And as a result, they're playing just a strict control package to fill that graveyard to ensure that their Murktide is coming down with, 3 or 4 counters at least.
Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of the Demir lists as I, look at the metagame for the metagame videos that I do on YouTube, and most of, if not all of the blue-black lists have moved away from Oculus, and they're just playing 3, sometimes even 4 Murktide.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I dig it.
Good. I think Oculus is not good in that deck, so.
Yeah. All right. And then my final takeaway, I just feel like from my experience and from what I'm seeing online, that the Boros sideboards are way too spread out and need to be refocused. I think building a sideboard in this format is actually kind of hard because the combo decks are all challenging and frequently operate on very different axes. So the things you're doing against something like Storm is different than what you're doing against Belcher, is different than what you're doing against Titan. And all 3 of those decks are problematic in different ways. I also think the format's kind of generally more diverse than maybe we want to give it credit for. Obviously, Boros and Orzhov and Eldrazi are fixtures, but you do have Storm and Titan and Belcher. You still have Prowess coming up the rear. Demir is doing things. People are trying to make Affinity work. Basking brute scale combo is really popular. So I think there's a lot of different potential threats. And I don't really like the current approach of Boros sideboards of having a lot of 1s and 2s of, and then just like 4 cards for Eldrazi specifically.
Right.
And I think that's especially a problem in the current shape of Boros because you don't have a lot of sources of traditional card advantage.
Yeah.
We lost Amtraptor. We don't have the One Ring. You're really limited in your ability to kind of just like get through your deck, and you're instead creating virtual card advantage by producing a ton of tokens and beating your opponent before they've cleared their hand. I think there's also probably a school of thought that you can play fewer sideboard cards for individual matchups because your plan A is so good against a lot of people that even if you're not going to draw into a silver bullet, you still have a fighting chance to just curve out and run someone over if they don't have their plan in place or they don't have the right interaction for you executing on that plan. And I think there's a way to thread that needle where if your plan A is so consistent, so good against a lot of the format in general, then maybe you need to have fewer 1s and 2s in your board and more 2s, 3s, and 4s so that you can be a little bit more consistent in the matchups that are consistently problematic. I had 1 Stony in the sideboard and 1 Deafening Silence. And although my sample size against Belcher was very small, that's a really difficult deck to beat if they're setting the terms of engagement in the game. And I want to have a lot more consistency in being able to draw those hate pieces. And I don't think that deck is as popular as Breach used to be that I need to devote 8 sideboard slots to it. But more than 2 is probably critical because you have a lot of cards that are like essentially dead in the main that you can side out. I was bringing out my Fables and my Phlages because I didn't want to play a long game against them. But, there's a very strong argument for taking out like your Galvanic Discharges and Thraben Charms as well. But I didn't have enough cards to bring in if I were to remove all these cards that I thought were just like on the bubble anyway.
Right.
So moving forward, I want to experiment more with sideboards. I don't know that I can ever get to the point where what we used to do with Rhinos and the glory days where Rhinos had just like 4 sideboard cards and they were all 4-ofs.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
4-4-4-3.
That was so awesome. And I've never seen that since or before that. But maybe not having 7 or 8 different sideboard cards is necessary. Maybe you can have 4 or 5 different sideboard cards, fluctuate the numbers a little bit, and really hone in on the decks that are really hard for you, and just trust your aggro plan to beat the decks where you're more or less at parity.
Yeah, because I sort of share this sentiment where I was looking at a lot of Boros lists over the weekend, and they're more like generic answers, right? It's like a Celestial Purge and a Wear Tear, and not a lot of these haymaker cards. Like you mentioned, they still have 1 to 2 Silence, 1 to 2 Stony, or I guess Sounds. They're both Sounds, Deafening and Stony. But you don't really see 4 Molten Rain, or you know what I mean? It's like a lot of these are split, and I feel like I sort of agree with you where you kind of for that specific weekend need to pick and choose which decks you want to beat instead of hemming and hawing. I think I agree with that a lot.
The other things I want to try is I just want to cut Fable entirely. I think that card is a little too easy to answer on the stack for what like all the blue adjacent decks are doing on the surface. I think it's also a little slow to kind of generate value in general. So even though it can force a 2-for-1 between the Goblin and the enchantment side of it, I don't know that the juice is really worth the squeeze right now with that card in particular, when I could be going a little bit more aggressive, play that extra voice, maybe play more static prisons instead so I can have like flexible removal so that I can be as honed in on this like aggressive curve out plan rather than counting on something like Fable to win me a longer game. And I think Spyro can still win you those long games by themselves, especially off the top. Like a top deck Spyro when you're Hellbent feels a lot more powerful than a top deck Fable. And I'd rather count on Spyro to do that dual task of filtering out my back cards, which converts into material, while also like getting me into that mid to long game if we've been exchanging resources all game and I need to just draw some more cards to find a way to close.
I would just be a little bit worried about the mirror, because like if you're leaning too much on the aggressive angle, then it feels like if you're losing, I mean, I guess if you're losing the Flage battle, that's kind of what ends up happening in the mirror anyways. So it's like, I guess if you're even if you're leaning more aggressive, as long as you still can like be ahead in the Flage battle, maybe that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the mirror, I think there's also other 3-drops that you can look at that give you more aggression. I still haven't tried to play Tursa Light Shatter, and I want to give it a shot just because it's a 3-mana, 3-power creature with haste. And I think that can be a very impactful way to push through additional damage or turn a corner, especially if you're moving to that mid to late game. And when this card started popping up in some results, I did a Scryfall search of how many red or Boros 3-drops have 3 power and haste. And there's actually a lot of them.
There's a lot. Yeah, I was going to say, I think that
Bogart
this is a pretty
Ram
normal
Gang,
thing.
baby.
Yeah.
The OG.
Yes. But this one had the most, potentially had the most synergy with what this deck is doing, especially with how big the graveyards can be in Boros. So I think there's room to explore with what you're doing at the top of your curve if you want to fiddle with the 3-mana slot in particular. But maybe that's not the move. Like maybe the move is go down on 3-drops and find room for Corey Steelcutter and play just like mostly 1s and 2s and be as aggressive as possible, and then have more room in your sideboard for silver bullets to clear the way for you to be as aggressive as possible.
Random side tangent. I don't know if anybody's ever tried Screaming Nemesis in Boros, but like, how do you kill that thing in the mirror?
Good point.
Flage it, you know. If you flage it, I'll just kill something, or dome you for 3, and then you can't gain life with your flage.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Honestly, I kind of like that.
TikTok.
The gears
TikTok.
are moving in Stan's head. I could see it.
I don't want to go too deep on the Corey Steele thing, but the only thing I would say about that is tough to play that card without cantrips, I think.
It is.
Ultimately. So, because you have to double spell so much that you're just going to burn through your hand, and then what happens? So I don't know. I'm not trying to disprove that idea, but
And I'm sure that's probably what people have found who've tried it. But
yeah.
Hey, I'm just asking questions here.
That's right. But you did have want to drown your sorrows after losing in the top 8 in a particular way. Am I right?
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
We have 10 minutes left.
All right, cool. Well, then we don't need to belabor every card, but
He's got the tripod out over here.
So, Stan, you're going to open some prize packs, and we're going to do a little bit of talking about the cards from Tarkir and them.
that's the idea.
Can I give you my really quick notes on draft while you're setting up this camera? Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I want to hear what you've been thinking about Limited and how much you've been playing.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Limited. I'm only in Platinum 2. I'm trying to make my way into Diamond by the end of the season if I can, or the month if I can. We'll see what happens. I'm just one of those people who kind of sticks in Plat. Like, I feel like I'm doing okay at the format. I like the format. It's very weird. Tarkir is a weird format, 100%. And I think a lot of the content creators are scratching their heads about it too. Like, Lords. I've been listening to a lot of Lords of Limited lately, and Limited Resources, and also Limited Level Ups, which is a podcast I heavily endorse. If you like drafting, you should go check out Limited Level Ups. They all kind of have different takes. The takes change every week, but most people at this point have kind of settled on the idea that there's really only 2 decks to play in the format. In the heavy, like the way that the format is set up, it's basically you're either Boros aggro or you're playing 5-color dragon soup, which is pretty interesting and not, I think, what anybody was thinking would happen with this particular format. And the thing is, the color fixing is so good in this set that it's very easy to just branch out from a kind of modest mana base into, I'm just going to take every dragon that I can.
Interesting.
So it's weird. There's not a lot of reason to adhere to the clans in most cases. But I also think that it's a little bit of an echo chamber on these podcasts and at high level play where people are saying, well, these are the 2 best decks, so we're only going to take the 2 best decks. And I think that if you're at lower tiers in Arena, if you're at F&M, if you're drafting with your friends, you might still draft like a conventional clan strategy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a couple of things I'll tell you about that. Because it's this shards or a wedge set, you're going to want to start with opposing color pairs. Most people say that. Try to do an enemy color pair and then splash something to get into whatever clan you're going into. So keep that in mind. That's kind of how we started with all of this. A few other notes that I have here just to like speed through them. Because of this set is so powerful and the mana fixing is so good, I think the first 5-6 picks that you picked, this is taken from Limited Level Ups, you basically should just take whatever the best card is for the first half of the first pack and then work out what you have and try to figure out where to go from there. Do not commit super early. I also don't think you should take a gold card very early. I don't think there's not many gold cards I would consider taking early. I'm mostly trying to take a powerful uncommon or common that's a single color to start and kind of sticking in that lane for a while. Conversely, you can go ahead and take those cards, just know that you might not play them. So don't try to force them.
Don't be married to your first pick.
Don't get married to your first like 5 or 6 picks in this format.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because fixing is really abundant. But for what it's worth, last couple notes, my favorite color is blue in this format.
Some things never change, Dave.
True. And Abzan is kind of terrible, as are most of the black creatures. So I would generally kind of avoid that if you were doing what you're doing. All right, let's take a look at some cards.
All right, so if you guys see anything that's really good in your expert formats, let me know. And in this case, Devon's the standard expert.
You better open a Corey Steel Cutter. Dave needs them.
I would love. I want one. Yeah. So here's what I really want. Right. Like I would love a Corey Steel Cutter. I'd love an Ugin. I kind of just want fetch lands.
Yeah, I got one of them. They look nice, actually. I got a Misty Rainforest in my box.
Yeah.
All right. First card is Tempest Hawk.
I would not
you can
select
just skip
Tempest Hawk.
It's not good. Hey, look, we got the same common run here we're looking at in the pack that I have in my hand and Stan has in his. Underfoot, Underdogs, you can skip. Caustic Exhale is going to be the next card. Yep, that's right. The next card. Good. So Caustic Exhale you can set aside as being a card that we would possibly take. It's a single black for an instant that gives target creature -3/-3 until end of turn. And then as an additional cost, behold a dragon or pay 1. That is a fine removal spell in this format. So set that one aside. Krotig Vanguard. That's the next card I have in my pack as well.
Dude, do we have the same pack?
Temur Devotee should be the next card you have.
Yeah. What?
Print runs, baby.
Now they'll be different. The next card that you have shouldn't match mine. It's generally 5 cards per print card. Yeah. So Temur Devotee, the Devotees are pretty good. You can set Temur one aside. It stinks because it has Defender.
Oh.
This one is
Watcher of the Wayside.
Set it aside. It's not. We're going to talk about it in any format. You can set this card aside. The next one is, read the name.
Reigning Victor.
Reigning Victor. It's a Mardu common. It is okay, not great. You could set it that one aside.
How have these dual split mana cost cards
the 2 cards, as people call them sometimes? They're generally good and useful, I would say. You don't have to stretch to get into them. Some of them are much better than others. This one is okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the uncommons seem very good. And I know that next card, Sunpearl Kirin.
Yes. So Sunpearl Kirin is a generic and a white for a 2/1 flash flying. When this creature enters, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it's a token, draw a card. Are people playing this in Pixie?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're playing 4 copies.
Yeah, this card.
Flash is just so huge in an effect like that.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah. You can set that next to the Caustic Exhale for us to look at the end of the pack, Stan, as far as draft goes.
All right. Next, we have Veteran Ice Climber.
So for me, this is a skip. This is a weird card. It's a 1/3 Vigilance for a generic and a blue that can't be blocked. And whenever it attacks, up to one target player mills cards equal to its power. So this is kind of a gotcha card where if people can buff this and make it hard to kill with non-black removal, you can just basically kill somebody with this card. But otherwise, it's nothing.
Seems sketchy.
Yeah, this card's nothing. You can just
Yathan,
skip it.
Tomb Guard.
Yeah.
Dave says skip it. Sonic Shrieker. It's
So
our first
Sonic-
dragon.
Extremely good card.
Yeah.
It is a Mardu card. It's 2 generic, red, black, white, for 4/4 flying. And it says when this creature enters, it deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life. And then it says if a player is dealt damage this way, they discard a card.
Yeah,
That card is
pretty good.
absurd.
absurd.
Yeah, I would set that aside for sure.
First rare Songcrafter Mage.
Is that card
So
good in
this is
limited?
this is the Snapcaster Mage variant. I had a deck the other day where I had 3 of these.
In limited?
In limited. Yeah, I don't know how I managed to do it, but I had 3 of them in limited. It was only a 4 or 5 win deck. It didn't go like absurd, but I'm not even going to read this. This basically gives a card Harmonize.
Yeah.
And the trick with this is that it gives Harmonize and you can tap it to reduce the Harmonize cost on the card that you're casting on the turn that the Songcrafter Mage comes into play. So you get a bit of a discount on the Harmonize cost just because you can tap the Songcrafter Mage itself to reduce it by 3.
Seems like a lot of setup, though.
I don't think this card is as good as some of the other ones that we've had, so I think you can set it aside.
All right, maybe will we get another rare? No, we got another Teamer Devotee.
It's a
Bad.
heave.
Jungle
This
Hollow
whole pack is a heave, honestly.
and an Elephant Token.
Not a good pack.
I think this pack is kind of mid, like Devon is saying. That the 3 cards for draft are definitely the Sonic Shrieker, the Caustic Exhale, and the Kieran. For what it's worth, I think most people would pick the Kieran here. I haven't looked at 17 lands to see which one is higher in the win rate, game in hand win rate between Sonic Shrieker and Kieran. I would take the Sonic Shrieker, pack one here, and just really try hard not to force myself to play the card and just fall into this if conditions are right.
Yeah, and it's like
'Cause-
pack is low enough power level that you just want to maybe high roll a little bit. You know, you're not passing anything great.
That's 100% it. So Sonic Shrieker has a 60.7% win game in hand win rate on 17 lands, and Sun Pearl Kieran is much lower, 56.4,
Yeah, makes sense.
and Caustic Exhale is 56.9. So I mean, 17 lands agrees with what I said there, but that's what I would do. Like I said, I think that you can burn picks, especially early on picks, for power here and figure out what opportunities you have.
You know, also I want to open other than Ugin Fetch Lands and Steel Cutters is the Red Warrior token for my
for voice.
For cutters.
for my victories.
Oh, for victories, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's a rare token, unless anything else
Is
makes
it?
it.
I'll keep an eye out for those
I opened
two.
9 packs and I got 2 of them. So
Yeah. Well, big money Doomwake. All right, next
Okay.
pack. Coordinated Maneuver.
Yeah, I set this one aside. This is a skip.
skip.
I'm not going to bother reading it.
Wild ride.
Wild Ride.
That's a skip.
That's going to
Set
be
it
our
aside.
drive to our drive to Indianapolis, Dave.
You know about the one where Shane and I left here at like 4 a.m, right?
Yeah, I want to
make
relive
it.
that. I want to relive
Yeah,
that.
perfect.
Adorned Crocodile. Thumbs down.
Nope.
Sultai Devotee.
That's very middle of the pack.
Ice Ridge Serpent.
So I love this card. This is 4 generic and a blue for a 3/3, and it's got the Mana War ability, like it bounces an opposing creature.
Oh, I'm in.
I've had a lot of decks that were really good with this card, but it's not a great card itself, and you'll see it floating around later. So it's not a consideration for first pick.
Mana
unless the
War
pack's
just ain't
really
what it
bad.
used to be.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, we got a dragon, Storm Shriek Feral.
This card is very good, I think. It's 4 generic and a red for a 3/3 with flying haste, and it has a generic and a red for fire breathing on it, and then it has Cathartic Reunion as its omen. So generic and a red to discard a card and then draw 2 cards.
It's a common.
That's a common.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
The common dragons are very good in this set, and that's why the 5-color dragon deck is really good. So you can set that one in the consideration set.
I feel like
as
that could
well.
easily be an uncommon.
Yeah, it could.
Rebellious Strike.
No, this card is a pump plus draw card. It's not worth it.
We have another dragon. It's Purging Storm Brood. This one has the white Omen Absorb Essence to pump a creature, give it lifelink and hexproof, and then it's a 4/4 flying Ward 2.
Yeah,
Ward
so
pay 2.
here's the thing about this one is that this is one of the only omens that's an instant.
Oh.
So it's actually a legitimate combat trick that you can play. It's just being in black-white for this is a little weird, I think, but the trick is pretty good. The body is pretty good. It's not as good as the red card, I don't think, so I probably wouldn't take it, but...
How about this next one, Dragon Sniper?
Sniper.
Yeah, a 1 green for Vigilance, Reach, Death Touch for a 1/1. It's a cool card. It's not a first pickable card.
What about Jeskai Monument?
So we didn't talk about the monuments in draft. These are very, very good. They're 2 generic. Devon, I don't know if you've read these, but they're 2 generic, and they let you search up a basic land of the clan that they go with, and then they have an activated ability that makes a creature that you can cash in later in the game at sorcery speed. So this one makes 2 birds. All the monuments are good and playable, and definitely a reasonable first pick, although not like a great first pick.
Final uncommon is Whale of War.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is mad.
That guy is mad. You can skip it. This is the like double raise dead card, and it also gives creatures -1/-1 until end of turn at instant speed. It's okay, but not amazing.
The guy's
first
mad because the
rare.
card's not good.
Inevitable Defeat. Another
Yeah.
Mardu card.
Yeah,
Good sealed pool.
yeah, really good sealed here with a caustic exhale too.
Yeah.
There. All right, so this is a generic red, white, black. For this spell can't be countered. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller loses 3 life, and you gain 3 life. Yeah,
Sure.
This is just better than all the other cards in the pack. I would just take it first pick and just again make sure that I was really honest with myself as to whether I get to play it later or not. But it's a really good
Are
card.
we taking this or the second rare that stands about the flip?
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, we
never
did
mind.
not
Eternal
get
Master.
another one. It was Effortless Master
Effortless Master, yeah.
and a Tranquil Cove.
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting about, you guys want to do one more? Is Shane going to kill us if we do one more pack? We're at an hour 8 record time. One more.
I'm already cracking.
He's already
it.
opened
All right,
the
let's do
pack.
it.
Sorry, Shane.
So
Just
while
read less text.
Yeah. While Stan is opening this pack, I do want to say the lands are really weird. You would expect them to be really high picks, and they are just sort of like
there it is.
you can get the lands pretty late, and if you construct your mana base right, you should be splashing for that 3rd color, like I said.
Yeah, so you don't need a ton of them.
Yeah, you don't, but sometimes you get them anyway, which is
Right.
interesting because there's so much fixing, and green has a ton of fixing too.
Yeah.
All right, so just give me yays or nays. Devoted
Yeah.
Duelist.
No.
I said yay or nay.
Okay.
Evolving Wilds.
It's a maybe.
Perhaps.
Cruel Truths.
No, this is Sign in Blood.
Sagu Wildling. Another
So Sagu
common
Wildling,
dragon.
this is a great card. This is 4 generic and a green for a 3/3 flyer that gives you 3 life when it comes into play, and it basically has the attune
Lay
the
of the
ether
land.
ability. Lay of the land. That's what it is. It's a green mana to go search up a basic land and put it in your hand. This card is definitely first pickable.
So that's a yay.
That's a yay. Yeah.
What about High Spire Bellringer?
Nay.
Nay.
Aggressive Negotiations.
Nay.
Sibzig Appraiser.
So this is the best common in the set, according to the win rates.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Organ Grinder, I think is the card that it was. It's 2 generic and a blue for a 2/1. And it says when this creature enters, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand and the other in your graveyard.
Huh.
This
Best
card is
common of the set, really.
very, very good. Yeah.
Interesting.
But this is going into Dragon decks, I assume, if it's not in the, like Boros Energy. Or not Boros Energy,
doesn't-
but just Boros Aggro.
It's just a great blue card that lets you draw into your powerful cards. There's also a lot of graveyard synergy in this deck, in this whole set. So if you put a Harmonized card in the bin, you can put a target for certain reanimation spells into the bin as well. It's a really good card. It blocks and trades against the aggressive decks. It's good. And like I said, blue is my favorite color. This would be the card that I'm definitely thinking about taking right now.
How about Rainveil Rejuvenator?
No.
What about Venerated Storm Singer?
No. This card is good, but not interested.
We got a Frontier Bivouac.
Triome. Catch
Yeah.
your Triome, baby.
They're not as good. Tri-lands used to be worth a pick. They're not worth it in this format.
Sarkhan, Dragon Ascendant, our first rare.
Sarkhan is really sweet. And I've done some funny things with this, with all the dragons in this set, like playing the Clarion Caller or whatever.
Yeah.
The 3-mana dragon after I put this out, and then just basically playing a dragon every turn after that. Also, if you can behold a dragon when you play it, you get another a treasure token that you can use for something. It's a good card, but it's not first pickable, I don't think.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
we have a mythic. Death begets life. Destroy all creatures and enchantments. Draw a card for each permanent destroyed this way. It costs 8 mana. Sultai +5.
All right, Dave. How slow is the format? Because, I mean, I remember. I don't know. This is maybe a throwback. I don't know if you remember Dune Blast, but Dune Blast
I definitely remember that.
was
Yeah.
one of the best cards in that limited format. I don't know if this is similar. It's one more mana, but
So this is actually a card I haven't had a chance to go up against.
It is mythic.
Given what it does, I think it's definitely the first pick here because of replacement level. Also, according to 17 Lands, it is higher. It's a 60% win rate than Appraiser, but Appraiser has a 59.2% win rate, game in hand win rate, which is high B tier.
Okay. And then we got Underfoot Underdogs and
Yep.
Swiftwater Cliffs.
Yeah.
So we're
Well, I
taking a
didn't
mythic.
expect us to. Yeah, I didn't expect us to just take all the rares and mythics. Or I guess we took a good uncommon, a
first
rare,
pack,
and a
right?
mythic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway,
If you, the listener, want to buy my cards at a massive markup, I'll sell them to you like $6, $7, $8 a piece.
email Shane@thedivedown.com.
perfect. Perfect.
Most importantly, I did get my Red Warrior token in the last pack as well.
I saw.
Nice. Love it.
You got that
Yeah.
rare token.
What am I supposed to do with these last 3 packs?
We're going to turn off the recording and then we're going to open the rest.
Okay, well then I should probably close this episode ASAP.
Yeah.
Hey Devon, best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
We're rooting for you.
Yeah, and for all the listeners at home, if you guys are going to be in Minneapolis, come by, say hi.
The Dive
meet
Down's
you.
rooting for you, but most importantly, America's rooting for you.
Mm-hmm.
And all the fine folks of Massachusetts as well.
Noted.
And that wraps up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. If you use Apple or Spotify, leave us a rating and review. You can reach out to us via email, thedivedown@gmail.com, or you can find us on Blue Sky. You can support the podcast at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can support Devon at twitch.tv/doomwake. Head over to Heavy Play to get some incredible deck and dice boxes and playmats and more featuring the EquipMag system. Use promo code TheDiveDown2025 for 10% off your first order at Heavy Play and get 25% cash back after 3 months of a Mana Traders rental account with promo code TheDiveDown over at manatraders.com. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and wish Devon love.